And with that, I'm going to introduce the first part. So this is Designing Forward with AI. Our first speaker is Kristian Simsarian, who is well known as one of the the founding chair of the IxD master's program, among other things, at the CCA here in San Francisco. He's also an award-winning innovator. He was at IDEO. Bio, too long to mention. Have a look online. He is absolutely incredible. I'm looking forward to his talk. It's going to be on how AI will change the way we work. So Kristian, with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here today. I want to say that the organizers have done such an incredible job organizing this event. Thank you. So good morning, fellow designers and old friends, and I see current students, alumni students, and faculty. I want to invite you for a dialogue for the next 15 minutes. We have a great opportunity because we're in a critical moment. And first, let me tell you about another critical moment. This is my great uncle Jimmy. He was a designer, and in our family, he was famous. And as a boy, I was greatly proud of him, and I was inspired by him, and he designed policy. He worked with Eleanor Roosevelt, and he had a PhD in law with a focus on the geopolitical boundaries defined by water. This is Jimmy sitting behind Eleanor Roosevelt in 1949. They were designing the articles for the Charter for Human Rights, which became the foundation for the modern United Nations. And Jimmy was in the background. He was taking notes, making interpretations. And I've sat in meetings kind of like this, where the business folks are sitting up front, and I'm sitting in the back trying to make sense of this, making some notes. They're negotiating, and I'm trying to figure out what this might mean for my designs, and I'm making a list of strategy points to bring up the right time. And I'll bet you have too. One thing I want you to remember is that the content of the Declaration of Human Rights is far more important than the font, the color, the layout, the paper that it's printed on. But you know that. And what does that have to do with AI? So what I'm saying is that helping determine what machine learning does is more important than designing a specific AI interface. Policy and strategy are more important than the implementation, and it's more dire than that. A great interface powered by a supercomputer that is optimizing for user screen addiction is destructive, isn't it? I think we can do better. As you know, we're in this huge shift in technology. AI, specifically machine learning, will play an increasingly important role for all technology design, and especially for us as a room full of designers of technology. In February, there was a panel that left open the question in the IxD conference in Seattle. Now that we have that seat at the strategy table, what should we do with it? And I think I have an answer, at least part of an answer for what we should do with that. We are a human-centered partner at the table, and like designing the Charter for Human Rights after an inhumane war, designers will need to shape the future policy of machine learning. And this will happen in every organization, and I'd like to help you prepare for that role. My message comes from some perspective. I worked as an AI scientist in the 1990s, and then as a design and business lead at IDEO in the 2000s, and as an IxD educational pioneer for the last 9. And from these 30 years, I believe I'm in a unique position to bring some insight. So here goes. I tried to memorize this afternoon, and there's some words that I really want to be careful of, so I'm going to have to read some of this. So here's an important thing to know. Machine learning, or ML, is a dynamic pattern matcher. If you see expertise largely as matching patterns, a mapping of specific inputs to outputs, pixels on a screen of a photo of my pet Siamese cat named Sanook to the category cat, then you can see ML is set to outperform humans in many tasks that are currently done by experts, including our own, especially expertise that is focused on pattern matching of nouns like medical x-rays. It's important to know, however, and there's a lot of hype in the media, that we're not talking about general intelligence, and generally we're not talking about general intelligence with the kind of ML that any of us are going to work with. This is correlated intelligence, it's not causal. Machines have no idea what a cat is, what it means to have a pet, or that my cat Sanook is a snuggly aging friend who's struggling with disease, or what that might mean for me. It just knows that a picture falls into the category that humans call cat. But that's extremely useful, and that's the essence of why ML is so hot right now, especially when it can be used to predict stuff. So in 2017, AlphaGo defied predictions and shut out KG, the world's best Go player. And this picture was taken right after he realized he was going to lose. He was in tears. And just a few years before, Go was thought to be near-term impossible for machines because it was orders of magnitude more complicated than chess. And it was provably impossible for brute force computing, which means examining all possible moves. So because machine learning is also an amplifier, it can do pattern matching millions of times faster than humans. And it'll get quicker. It's now being embedded in hardware. And it'll outsmart, outscale, outspeed humans, especially for anything that's machine-readable expertise. But to be fair, AlphaGo had a massive budget, state-of-the-art hardware, 20 engineers, and KG had a cup of tea. And increasingly, there are new powerful pattern recognizers. Face recognition that's more accurate than humans. That's been here for a while. Texture mapping of deep fakes. And if you haven't seen this video, check it out. It's Jordan Peele warning us through Obama's voice the dangers of deep fakes. The combination of which is inevitable, deep fakes and facial recognition, and could be used to show someone you trust, giving you hyper-targeted propaganda. So facial recognition is already being used in China to monitor behaviors in what some call a digital dictatorship. This stuff makes me uncomfortable. Fake news has now been proved to influence our last election, and the impact is important. Unfortunately, we cannot always trust our business leaders to do the right things. Their motives are not always socially aligned. Bias exists in machine learning because it originates from humans. Amazon in February continued to sell their flawed image recognition system that simply mimicked the biases of the people that made it. And this week, the ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery, AI experts called for Amazon to stop selling the system to police because of its inaccuracies with darker-skinned people. Last spring, in front of senators, under scrutiny regarding misinformation and privacy, Mark Zuckerberg said basically AI will fix everything. This makes that important. In an increasingly interconnected world, multinational companies have become the de facto superstates that dwarf the economies of most nations. These companies, like many businesses today, are run by competitive, hyper-rational white men. I went to engineering school for 13 years. I raced Ivy League crew. I know the type. And despite my best efforts, I am one sometimes. And I'm pretty sure I don't want to leave the fate of healthy living and crucial business policies under just this mindset. They need your help. Designers with diverse backgrounds and big hearts to engage. These guys are a little better. Last year, after protests by employees, Google scrapped the Maven project, where AI was used for lethal force in drones. And in February, Apple took a bold move to take down Facebook's access to VPN after it broke Apple's terms and conditions. This caused havoc at Facebook. Apple knew exactly what it was doing, and it sided with protecting its users. There are hundreds of great examples of AI for good outside of West Coast big tech. Machine learning does not care. The outcome depends on the consciousness of the people that create it. Some examples include diagnosing lung cancer, surveillance being used to protect women in India while using ride-hailing services. FDA has approved a vision system that outperforms humans in eye disease diagnosis. The list is incredible. Lots of applications are happening, and they'll change many of these outcomes, especially in healthcare. And here's our role as designers. Early designers worked hard to earn the right to be at the strategy table. Our customer insights are now seen as critically valuable to business. Now another important table is in a different room. Designers need to work hard again to earn the right to define the objective policies of machine learning. Not just the conversational UI or the design for trust, though those things are really important. We need to define what machine learning needs to do for society and all living things on the planet. Alongside business and engineering, and increasingly lawyers, we are a critical part of the equilibrium formula. We are in a shift. I'll describe the shift and I'll tell you how to get ready, so you're not left behind. Here's a quick history of the eras of design, the limiting factors, and what's coming from my perspective. In the early days, interaction design was nearly all specs, back to the glory days of CD-ROMs. Early web, we had assumed that we had Final Cut. Connected applications through Web 2.0, we spec'd like mad, and sometimes thousands of pages of beautiful spec books. Does anyone remember those? They were beautiful. Craft was our limitation in that realm. Then in the mid-2000s, we moved to agile and lean UX, and it all changed. We brought mocks, but the detailed specs were not worth the time. Programmers were building fast and did not want or need specs. They invited us to sit next to them instead. What an honor. Our limiting skill was collaboration. Not all the specs-oriented craftspeople survived this change. And that brings us today. We are under another shift, and it's bigger. Machine learning. Think about that second word. Forget about Final Cut. The interface is smart and dynamic. It needs to learn, and it's now about teaching. Our ability to teach is now the limiting factor. Teachers don't spec their students, and machines are not ready to collaborate. So let's get to it. In the age of machine learning, we need to define what these machines will learn. Simple enough, right? Well, this is how strategy is implemented. If you're working in a company, these objective functions will embed assumptions about how company profit will be achieved. Business leaders and engineers will need our help to drive work on societal alignment, and I want to help equip you for that role. Great teachers think in terms of learning outcomes, but guess what? Machine learning is fundamentally about learning outcomes too. Well, what does that mean? Sometimes these learning outcomes are discovered, like in unsupervised learning. And sometimes they are implicit, like in supervised learning, where the objective functions are implicit in calibrated data. And that's why we hear so much about data scientists right now. Sometimes they're explicit and hard-coded, like in the reinforcement learning for limited domains, like chess, or the system that beat the Go player K. If that's confusing, don't worry. You'll learn. ML is based on big math that you don't learn until the 4th year of college calculus. But basically, it's about convergent pattern matching, and you don't have to know this math. But you do have to bring your curiosity and your human-centeredness. And please don't let anyone intimidate you away from the AI table. You can simply speak what AI researchers call natural language, like we are doing now. So what are your learning outcomes for ML? Have you thought about it? Right now, there's a bunch of hyper-competitive, rational people in Menlo Park and Mountain View, and just down the road, on Market Street, who haven't really thought about it either. They're coding up the same old Silicon Valley KPIs like engagement, enrollment, time on screen, further perpetrating a culture of screen addiction, and frankly, not knowing any better. You need to be bold. Does that sound scary? Well, sure. It's heretical to VC-backed tech norms, but I have great news. The purpose-driven economy is in full bloom. Industry titans like Larry Fink, who manages the largest fund, $5 trillion at BlackRock, Paul Pullman, former CEO at Unilever, and Tim Cook at Apple are standing up to the business-as-usual approach. And if you're lucky, your CEO will too. This is a chance to reinvent yourself and reinvent our practice. It's not too late. You can be a teacher of machines. And this is not just a US discussion, it's global. Folks seem to be agreeing in a call for more policy, and it's all in flux. Who will stand up in business meetings for users and for citizens? Will it be you? With billions of people affected by our designs every day, our work is clearly political. New Zealand's amazing Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, called for responsibility from platforms. She called them publishers. That's a huge shift. Prime Minister Scott Morrison takes it even further, referring to platforms being weaponized. Honestly, living here in San Francisco, it's easy to become numb to the scale of our work. I see these as wake-up calls to the global impact of our designs. And if we don't wake up, ML will simply do its job and scale or optimize the same KPIs, learning objectives that we program, creating more addicted and misinformed citizens. But that's not us. It's not too late to start. I want to invite more designers in to design the learning objectives and what machine learning actually does for us as people. So here it is. AI is all over the place. Watch your inbox. Watch for that invitation to the AI conversation. It'll come. It might look like this. It might be terribly inconvenient and boring. But please say yes, because otherwise you, the human-centered advocate, are not there. You can also be proactive, and by sharing relevant information in articles, demonstrating your knowledge from the 5 steps that I'll give you, and that way people will know you're interested. So, are you ready to become a teacher of machines? Setting policy and strategy? Learning outcomes? I've been teaching for 25 years and doing strategy for 18. Here are 5 things I think you can do to prepare. First, become AI literate. Learn about the different forms of machine learning and logic. Go to AI meetups. Learn to speak to data, ML, scientists and engineers, and business leads and lawyers. And understand the role that data plays in learning. Google has some great public tools. Lobe.ai is a great tool. Andrew Ng's AI courses on Coursera are great. He has one called AI for Everyone. Fast.ai if you want to be technical. And all of these 5 steps I put on my website, and I'll put the URL at the end. And we need more of these tools. Perhaps you'll build some with your new knowledge. Subscribe to a news service like the daily curated Inside AI. Get alerts on artificial intelligence from your favorite publication. And today I'm announcing a new course that we're going to do in June called AI for Designers. Second, link those business goals to societal ones. I like to think that context drives curriculum. So learn about and develop socially aligned learning outcomes. Study the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Read the Declaration of Human Rights. Get a copy of the Wisdom Economy card deck. Understand a multi-capital approach to impact measurement, and understand basic human needs. Then map these societal goals to the mission statement of your company and get creative with business leaders on how to rethink that profit formula. This is the kind of work I like to do in my consultancy and I teach to the grad students. It's not terribly hard, but it's what business people call out of the box. Third, you are modeling. As a teacher of machines, you are modeling the way to be, and your consciousness matters. First, do no harm. Since we are human, we are biased. Understand your biases and how you can overcome them. There are lots of tools on the web. Ask your HR person about the D&I, diversity and inclusion tools you can use, and hire and work with diverse teams. Then, embrace optimism. Identify the changes you want to see in the world. And align your work and surround yourself with others that want these changes too. Machines you help create are going to amplify what you do. So striving to be a better person will change the outcomes as well. Fourth, define dynamic learning objectives. Be a great teacher of machines. Great teachers think in terms of learning objectives, and they don't limit students by what they know. Learning objectives are dynamic. As you apply your mapping from societal need to learning objectives, focus on verbs and not just nouns. Nouns have time limits, especially in our business. My mentor, Bill Mogridge, gave me this advice when I was building the IxD programs at CCA. And for example, we don't teach specific design tools because they change every 6 months. So we teach meta learning and how to approach a tool to get what you need. Much of our curriculum, as you can see with the middle layer here, is defined by verbs. So fifth and last, practice and stand up for brave conversations. Working together, people can do amazing things. Difficult conversations take skill. And amplifying wisdom technology to learn and practice is what I call brave conversations. This is about effectively speaking the truth in order to have a stronger voice at the table, making sure that that voice can be heard, and pointing out common needs. Crucial Conversations is a fantastic book. Learn nonviolent communication to understand basic human needs, starting with understanding your own. And if you're in San Francisco, there's this wonderful thing called the Nonviolent Communication Dojo at the center up on Fillmore Street, every Monday night. It's fantastic. The content of the Declaration of Human Rights is more important than the typography, layout, and color in which it's printed. We need to focus on what AI is doing as much as how it looks while it's doing it. So join me in doing this work. Together we have a good chance to spot, respond, and sit at the table in these critical moments where AI is being defined and where we can shift its trajectory for the benefit of all living things. Everything is dematerializing. Today and tomorrow's interfaces will disappear. The policy you make will have a larger impact. So please start now. And thank you.
Thank you, Kristian.